Hello again, or hello again, should I say, only me. Here we are now, part 16, video 16 in the Fiat 131 build. So here we have the rear and front oil seal covers, rear and front oil seal, and then I've got bits and pieces to use to put it together, and I've lost a piece. What have I done with that? No, it's under there, sorry. So what I'm going to do, you can see that these castings are kind of hollow on the back. So if we press the seal in, like that, we're putting all the force around there and we may bend it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this on top of that ring there, okay, so that will support it like that. Then we'll put the seal on, and I've turned this up so that it fits on the seal, and that will push the seal in and it won't damage it at all. So it's slightly different than the old seal, actually, the new one. I better check the sizes actually, because you get two seals with this gasket set because there's two different crank sizes. And then also on the front here I've got this old grinding wheel, which is a scrap grinding wheel, Master CBN. So that's a CBN grinding wheel that used to grind faces of injection components, and then that will go onto there like that, and that will press that seal in on the front. So I'll get over to the press and get it done. Okay, so there we have our nylon back in there. So we're just going to put this on there like so, and then put the seal in. We've got a tiny little bit of silicone sealant around the edge just to seal it in, and then I can put this on the top of the seal just like so. I just want to make sure actually it's not going to damage that seal, because the other one isn't the same as this one. The other one doesn't have this double lip, and I think if I use this I'm going to damage that seal, so I'd be better off just finding something large and flat to push it in, because that I don't want to damage that seal. What I might do actually is use the old seal. Okay, something flat. That's the cover for the water jacket. It goes on the back of the block, so that's perfect. So we will place that in there and move this over so it's more central. Place this plate on the top. Make sure it's all looking pretty square. I'm going to put a spacer of some sort in there. Maybe I'll put this on there, just so we don't have to pump down so much. Tighten this up. This press is knackered. It needs a new ram, I think. So just want to make sure we're pretty central. And just gently, there we go. I'm going to stop there because this lip here is higher. So I'm going to stop there and push this over so it's not touching that lip. And just press down until it stops. There we go, the camera's on, so Dotty barks. And there we are. I'm going to do the same on the front one, and then we'll come back and fit them. Okay, so here we have the rear cover with the oil seal fitted. The face is nice and clean, all the faces are clean, the threads are all blown out, everything is clean. Brand new gasket, that's absolutely imperative that you use that. And then here you can see the lovely book, and then in box A, rear oil seal, 6M6x20 screws and flat washers. So this is why I like things down. So I've got box A, got the screws, and here they are. And tether screws because the threads go all the way to the head. If they were bolts, they would have a plain bit. Okay, so I am going to put a drop of oil, just a little drop on each of these bolts. Nothing much at all, just a drop. Lubricate the threads. Remember, when using bolts, where you can, always lubricate threads lightly. You don't want it all dry. It'll also help it from getting all seized up again in the future. The other thing we're going to do is put the cover up here, and I'm going to put some oil on the crank here, okay, especially on the edge, so that as the seal goes over it's got lubrication. And I'm also going to put some on the inside of the seal here, Okay, so that so that we know the seal's not going on dry, and then when we're turning the crankshaft while building the engine, it's got a level of lubrication. Get some of that double seal as well. Right, so that can go up there. Notice I've got the engine covered up, fresh paper, cloth, keep everything covered up. You don't want any dirt getting in there. You know, if like me, you're working out of your garage and you don't have an engine building room, then cleanliness, you need to be very, very careful. If you have an engine building room, clean everything once and just put it together. So I'm going to grease this gasket, which I always do. Some people will disagree. I always do. Okay, so we're going to just rub some grease into there. This is why I get my filthy dirty fingernails. I can't stand wearing gloves when doing any work. Okay, it's just literally just dampen the surface. You can see when it's done because the gasket changes colour. But it's literally just to dampen the surface so that it can not grab, but it can slide down. It can, obviously as it compresses, you can imagine when you put your foot on a marshmallow, it all goes out, and that's what it's doing. And this allows it to spread without friction. Okay, so we're going to put that gasket on there. There's not enough grease on there to hold it, I'm sure. No, there isn't. So what we're going to do, we will put the top back on this grease for a start. And we will clean our hands because they're covered in grease now. And me being the fussy bloke that I am, I like to keep everything clean. So, you can see in here, all engines are the same. Look, 3 aluminium lugs, and that is to sort of roughly centre it. Now what you need to do is put this on, okay, and just turn it slightly as you ease it on, okay? Now you can see it's on there. Alright, don't just try and it on. A lot of newer seals these days come with like a plastic jig that you force on. Go back and watch my Land Rover build and you'll see it on there. Now this, I'm sure, is symmetrical. I should have checked. In fact, I'm going to take this off and check because I don't want to get this wrong. Yes, it is symmetrical. So what we'll do is we'll put this on again. Okay, just get it on like that. And then we can put this up through, grab a bolt, put this up through here, and we can get a bolt into the hole in the gasket. And then into the thread by a couple of turns, and do the same on the other side. Oh dear, I've let the gasket go. Let's do the same here. And just push that on. Just like so. And then we'll tighten the bolts up, and I will torque them to 10 pounds-feet, which is the correct. They say sort of 8 to 11 is the correct torque. I don't know what the Haynes manual says. I'll have a look in a minute, see if it gives us a torque setting. But it should be between 8 and 11 pounds-feet on an M6 bolt. 8.8 grade, which is what these are. Okay, and we want to try and make sure it's as level as possible here. You can see we've got some movement in it. Can you see that or not? But we can just get it level. Okay, so there we go, that's fairly level. The seal has got it centralised. We don't want to be biasing it. We want the seal to make its own centre and not pull the cave cover around. So I'm going to grab a torque wrench and torque these up 10 pounds-feet. Okay, so there we are, all torqued down, 10 pounds-feet. You can see it's hardly anything. I mean, just one finger. It's you don't want to be over tightening them. You could put a bit of thread lock on them if you want to, just to be sure they don't come out. But they'll be fine like that. They won't come out. They've got the flat washers, which have a slight dish to them, which have a bit of a locking capability. Or you can just pull them down so tight you snap them off if you want to. There we go. So there we are. So that's those in. I'm going to fit this plate on the back here now for the water jacket, because that's difficult to get to while the engine's on the stand. So we'll get that done, and then we can get the engine back on the stand, so we're easier to film then as well. Okay, so by the way, I just want to say I'm filming this straight after I did part 15, or video 15. So we did the big ends just now in my world, but it was yesterday for you. So that's why I've got the same clothes on. Although I probably wear the shirt a couple of days in the garage anyway. What's the point in washing clothes to get them dirty again? Just to put something clean on to get it dirty again is what I mean. So generally in the good gasket sets you get 2 gaskets. This will be for the taller blocks, this is for the shorter blocks. So you can see they both have the same hole pattern, but this one is higher up. So that's for like the 2 litre. So this is going to go on here. Now this plate has been thoroughly cleaned and there's no muck or anything on there. I was just going to use some black silicone on here, but to be honest, I've never known, out of all the twin cams I've owned, I've never known this plate leak. So I'm just going to use this one again. In fact, I might give that another little rub down, because there is a little bit of unevenness there. I'm just going to get a bit of emery and give that a little clean up. Hang on here, that's better. So what I'm going to do is actually put a drop of grease on here as well, just to stop it corroding any further. So just have a bit of grease on here, because obviously this is sat at the back of the engine. It's kind of half inside the bell housing, so it has a pretty horrible life sat in that little dark corner of the world. And obviously you can get water running down off the scuttle panel or something like that. So what we can do is stick that gasket on there. There we go. The gasket's greased, so it's nice and supple, so everything will go together beautifully. Hang on a minute, I think I've just had some post come. Hang on. Bloody marvellous. The wonderful little Princess Dottie. She's taken to chewing up the post, the mail that I get through the letterbox. So I order on Amazon a bag thing that goes on the back of the door with Velcro, and to catch the post. And they've posted it, and she got it and started to chew it. So she almost destroyed the bag that was designed to stop her chewing. I could kill her sometimes, just shouted at her. But I won't hit her, don't worry, I will not hit her. Right, so there we go. So that plate's going to go on like that. I've oiled the bolts. Now I've written down in that, make sure you use the right bolts. These have spring washers on them, and they're 16mm long. You need to be very careful with the bolts on this engine, because there's 12, 15, 16, 18, 20, 22. They're all very similar lengths and they're easy to get confused. So make sure you're using the right bolts. What I did was went through, after I cleaned them all and everything, I went through the list again and made sure I could identify which were which. Because the last thing you want to do is go and use a 16mm bolt here where it's supposed to be a 20, and then when you come to do, say, the front cover, it's supposed to be a 16 and you've got a 20 and it bottoms out. So you don't want to be doing that. Right, so like I said, a lot of people may wish to use the black sealant on this plate because it's a direct. Have I got the right bolt there? Is it the right length? Yeah, it just went in a lot quicker. Yeah, you may want to use the black sealant on these because, you know, it's just a metal to metal joint, so it'll be absolutely fine. But I've decided to use the gasket. As I say, I think this is about my 9th twin cam, and I've never known one leak here. The biggest problem with these for leaking, I find, is on the main water inlet on the top of the head. That's the biggest problem area, especially on the Lancias, because they have it's a rubbish design. It's a steel pipe. On this one you've got like a little aluminium casting that's just like a little neck about that long, but on the Lancias you've got a steel pipe that goes all the way along right to the other end of the head and round. You can imagine the leverage on those tiny little M6 threads. Just going to go around and tighten these. Okay. So as you can see how they pull down and how it's squishing that gasket. That's the 10 pounds feet. Okay, we'll just go around and check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There we go. What I'll do before the gearbox goes on, I will just check all the, well, before the flywheel goes on, I will check all of these again. Just to make sure. I mean, I'm not sure if they will, but we'll see where the gasket settles. Will this pull down any more? No, they're not pulling down at all. Okay, so that's that done. Now I'm going to get the engine back on its stand, and then I'll see you back then. Okay, so now we're ready to fit the front oil seal. I've got the oil seal already oiled. I've cleaned the faces, I've greased the gasket, and I've gone around and checked all the holes are blind. If we get a hole, like I think this one here is not blind, it goes through into the cooling jacket, we'll have to use thread sealant on it to make sure that the coolant doesn't leak past the threads. So with this one here, exactly the same as we did on the back. We need to be careful of this woodruff key because that will damage the seal. So we're going to carefully place this over. Okay, and then once we feel it go onto the crank, just give it a little backwards and forwards. And there we go, that's gone on like that. Just pull that away. We put the gasket on, make sure obviously the gasket goes the right way around. With this front cover we have, in fact I'm going to have to take this off to show you again, make sure you get the right bolts. We have 3 M6 by 35 bolts, so there's 1, 2, 3, okay. Then you can see here, if you look, this one is slightly thinner than this one, so we have an 18mm bolt in there and a 20mm bolt in there, or 20mm screw should I say, sorry. So yeah, this is what I'm saying, be very wary when you take the engine apart, whatever engine you're working on, write down what it is that's come out, and that way you can't make a mistake putting it back together. Well, you can, but you're less likely to. So just going to feed that gasket up under there, grab a 35mm bolt, pick up the hole in the gasket and into the block, and then I'm going to do the same on this side. Pick up the hole in the gasket, which is easier said than done. There we go, and then screw it into the block. And once we've got those two there, like alignment pins, we can push the seal on and over the crankshaft. It's actually not going on very well, to be honest. It's kind of pulling itself off. It's not going correctly over the crank. The seal is coming back towards me. Come out. There we go, that's better. Right, be very careful of that. The seal is very close to the front edge of the crank. Now I've dropped this gasket, so make sure it's clean, there's nothing on it. Now we can slide this up under here again and put this bolt in. I've never had that problem before. Maybe the 1300 has got a shorter nose. I know that we have, there's something I'm going to show you when we do the water pump. I couldn't find the water pump. You see this seal just keeps wanting to pop off. It's done it again. How the hell am I going to fit this? I'm going to do this off camera, guys, okay? Okay, that was very awkward. The only way to get it on, really, because it has a very sharp edge on the crank, there's no real lead. The seal is on the very edge of the crank, so it just wants to keep popping off. So the way to get it on is to kind of do that. You can just work it on like that. Don't twist it on. If you let it go on an angle, it pushes the lip of the seal out, and then the spring that holds the seal, I'll show you on this one, the spring that's in there pops out. So you can see that spring is right on the edge of that seal. There's hardly anything holding it in, and as you push it over, it does that on the edge of the crank, and then the spring pops out. So you have been warned. I've never had that problem before. I don't remember ever having that issue. And I've certainly never had an oil leak from there. So, but we can get these bolts pulled down. Oh, the other thing is stick the gasket with a drop of grease. Stick the gasket to the block, because you can't be, like I did on the back, fiddling around with it, feeding the gasket, and you can't do that because it just keeps popping off. So there we go. As you can see, we'll tighten these up evenly, even Stevens, and these again are going to 10 pounds feet. There's that one. There's that one. That one. That one. And that one. So we'll just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. All done. All pulled down and all nicely done. And we can see that the seal is all around the edge of the crank there. It's not popped out. So yeah, that was a bit of a swine. I was a bit panicking. Then I thought I'd ruined something or got something wrong or something, but nope, the seal's exactly the same as the one that came out. So it's just the way it is. So there we go. Right. I think what I might do actually is just get some of my oil. Just put some more oil down here on the back of that seal to give it a better chance. But I'm not convinced that everything's good there. But it's not a major job to change that seal. The back one is, but it's not a major job to do that in the car. So we can play with that. We're going to have to cut these gaskets off where they stick through, and then I think what I'll do is put some little bits of sealant in there, because these joints here give it a path for oil to leak out, and I hate oil leaks. Right, what are we going to do next? Okay, this is actually 2 days later now. This is what, in real time, this is Monday the 28th, is it? 28th, yes, 28th, isn't it? Of July 2025. I am officially an idiot, a complete and utter idiot. So, if you remember the problems I was having with this front crank seal, I thought something's not right here. I've never remember having that issue before. And then it dawned on me, after I was an idiot, I think probably the reason is, if you look at most of the water pumps available for this engine have a depth from the front of the spindle, where the actual pulley goes on, to the mounting face of the water pump is 88 millimeters. So basically the flanger that the water pump pulley bolts to is 88 millimeters from the front of the block. So therefore the crank pulley will also calculate to be the same. Okay, so on this one it's 86. Now it seems like on the overhead valve engines they're 82, but on this one it's 86. So more about that in a second. So obviously the front of the crank is 2 millimeters shallower than the front of a crank on a 1600 or a 2 litre or a non-C1 engine. So I think that's probably the issue. The crank nose is probably 2 millimeters shorter. So rather than make a new front cover, I don't know why they've done it. I can think of no reason whatsoever why they've done it, unless they had some cranks that were scrapped because they had a scant material on the front and they used them for the 1300s. I just don't know. Very strange. Maybe they've used a overhead valve crank in a twin cam block and made it work. I don't know, but that seal is literally right on the edge. So what I've done, I thought, I know, maybe the seal will go back a bit further into the seal housing. So I took the front cover off again. You can see there's the engine there, here, without the front cover on it, and put it in the press and everything. Thought I'll use a socket and press the seal in. And here's the seal here. I don't know if you can see it, but you can see that it's dished in, because what I did, I used a socket that was the right diameter. I should have turned up a tool, because the problem is when you start using sockets, they have a radius on the nose. So the actual contact point is inside the OD. So therefore, I bent and ruined a brand new seal. So I've ordered another seal now. 11 quid for a bloody seal when you can get the whole gasket set with all the seals for 60 quid. So yeah, really annoying. So I've ordered another seal. It's an L-ring seal rather than a what are these called? What's the name of these? Cortico. So it's an L-ring seal, so it might be a bit of a different design. Maybe it'll be a bit deeper or something, I don't know. But what we need is a seal that has the seal diameter further back along the crank. Or of course what I could do is machine the seal housing to let the seal go deeper. But I mean, it's exactly the same as the seal that came off the engine, which has been on there for 43 years. So clearly it works and it's okay. It's just a bit odd, very odd. I've never had this issue before with an engine of any description. I've built quite a few. And as I say, I think this is my 9th Fiat Twin Cam. I've rebuilt at least 7 of them, and I've never had this issue before. So very strange. I can only think of this 86, 88mm thing is the difference. Who knows? But anyway, I cocked up, so I'm an idiot. So I've had to go on and do some other stuff. So I'm going to take you to the bench and show you what I've been up to. And I'll show you the seal as well, show you what I did to it, and also explain the water pump situation. Okay, so what have I been up to? Well, the first thing I've done is completely ruin this seal. As you can see, it's all dished in. That dent in it is where I've used the punch to punch it out, which has completely knackered it. But you can see how much it's dished in. I'll show you what I used. Here's the socket I used. Like an idiot. You can see it's a perfect diameter to press that seal in, but of course it's got a big radius on it, so it's pressed in. It's ruined the seal. Dickhead. So I usually turn up all my presses and everything to press seals, and I can't believe I did that. It's just a brain fart, I guess. I don't know. But if I'd have turned up what I would have done is turned up a ring which was, say, you know, 0.1, 0.2 smaller in diameter, had it locating in the seal diameter, so it gave it a sort of a registered fit, and then pressed, and I'd have found it wouldn't have gone any further. But no, I had to use a socket and cocked it up. So I'm withholding my language here. But yeah, what an idiot. And you can see here's the old seal, so you can see they're exactly the same. The seal depth you can see there, and this one is going to be out a bit further because I've dished it in, but that one there, you can see it's pretty much flush on the back. You may be thinking, hey Nigel, well, you've achieved what you wanted to achieve there, because you got the seal to go back further along the crank. And that's what I was thinking initially, because it's even, but the trouble is, if you remember, on the inside of the front cover there's that there's aluminium lumps that help locate it in the center. The seal was up against those, so other than pressing the seal out and starting again, which you can't do, you have to knock it out with a punch. It was all over. So hopefully this L-ring seal will be different. I don't know, maybe this is an L-ring, I don't know. Can't see a name on here, to be honest. Maybe this is an L-ring. Don't know, maybe I've never used a Cortico seal before, and that's what the problem is. I don't know, very strange. I always thought Cortico seals were some of the best in the world, but I know I've used them all over my Land Rover engine. So anyway, as you can see from here, I've been painting. So there's the gearbox cross member there. That's had a couple of coats of satin black. Little warning for you, I initially used Simonize. I got some Simonize paint, I think from Amazon. Amazon's just let me down lately so much. And the bloody, I mean, I bought it a long time ago, so there's no way I could expect to return it. But the nozzle just went off in my hand and the paint went everywhere. I think I talked about that before. There's the bracket on the top, which supports the plastic belt cover, which I may not put on, but we shall see. Here's the alternator bracket. Now, these are painted with like a galvanizing paint. It's just a silver coating, but it's very, very good for rust resistance. But basically these parts originally were cadmium plated, so they should be like that goldy color, but rather than have them, they were quite corroded. because the cab plating they put on is extremely thin. So rather than just leave them corroded, I've painted them silver. If I use these parts on this engine going forward, or on another engine or whatever, I will get them plated. Unfortunately, you can't get cab plating done anymore, it's all nickel now. And then there's the that's the water pipe, which comes off the water pump here and then goes along under the exhaust manifold and then goes up there for a heater hose, and there's a little elbow there for the choke on the carburetor. Saying that, there's the carburetor. I've been starting to clean that up, ready to strip, rebuild. When this was running, when you look down in here, when the engine was running, it was just everything in here was wet on both sides. It was just everything was wet. And these little jets here, you can see in there, those two jets there, okay, 1, 2, they were constantly flowing fuel. I don't know what on earth was going on there, but I'm sure I'm going to find some interesting stuff in there. And that was why the engine was running, you know, quite rough. It was absolutely flooding itself. But it obviously hasn't been running like that for very long, because otherwise the engine would be in a terrible state. But as you've seen, the engine is in a perfect state, so that's all good. So I've got a rebuild kit for that. I got that from Ricambi Auto International. This is their Ricambio, sorry. I should get a sticker off them, shouldn't I? I don't want to show you my address. There they are, Ricambio. The R is missing. Ricambio International Limited, Italian car parts specialist. They're absolutely brilliant. They're really, really good. And if you phone them up, they're really helpful. So the water pump saga. Here is the old water pump, which I don't want to use. It's got a bit of play in the bearing and it's extremely tight and it's very corroded there. So I thought, for what they cost, they're 30 odd quid, I'll get a new one. Remember to keep the little special bolts. They're tiny little M8 bolts in there. So as I say, the dimension from here to here, okay, so that face to that face is 86 millimeters. But every one I looked at, all the new ones, were either 82 from there to there to there, or 88. So I bought it and I thought I'll modify it. So it's quite a gamble. You buy a brand new part and modify it. So what I did, put a little socket down in there, okay, and then put it on the press, put a ring over there, and then pressed it down. So I've actually pressed this flange over the shaft, so it's now from there to there to there is now 86 millimeters. The other thing I noticed, this one has a 16 millimeter depth on the impeller, and all of the others had a 13 millimeter depth here. So that was very interesting. So it's got a bigger impeller on here than a lot of the other water pumps, which is, I find, very strange. But yeah, the reason I put the socket in there is what I didn't want to do was push the shaft through and end up disturbing the bearings and stuff. So what I've done is put the socket in there, so all of the load has gone between there and the shaft, not between the bearings and everything, or the casing. So yeah, really pleased with how that came out. It took a hell of a lot of pressure and it jumped, and luckily it jumped 2 mil. So I think it's about 0.5 millimeters out, if that, in alignment, but that's going to be absolutely fine. It's a V-belt, it'll take that, no problem. So there we are. So there's our new water pump converted. The other thing to look at, guys, if you are buying a new water pump, make sure you look at the shape of this piece here. A lot of them are this shape, okay, you can see there's the other one that's also the same shape, but some of them have the same sort of shape. If you can imagine, they drag the bolts outwards, or drag the studs outwards. So instead of getting this even shape like that, it's kind of more like a D. The bolts are sort of off to one side of the hole, or the studs, should I say. So bear that in mind when you're buying a new water pump. There we go. That just came wrapped in bubble wrap, as you can see there in the box. So I think it's probably Quinton Hazel. They've probably bought a job lot of them, because it's got QH on there, unless that's a quality code, I don't know. But there's no names or numbers or anything on it, so I'm not really worried about the quality. It's only got to last a couple of months, a few weeks. But I just didn't want to put that back on, because it's got play in it, as I say, and it's extremely stiff. You heard it before when I was turning it, and it was knocking on that, probably the water seal knocking about in there. But it's seen better days. It's probably 43 years old. I can't find a date stamp on it, but you can see on here it's genuine Fiat. So there we go. I never know if that's the number for the water pump or if that's the number for the impeller. But hey ho, maybe I'll see if I can take it apart and replace the bearings or something. Let's see, because it is an original casting, although saying that, it's severely corroded up here, properly corroded. Anyway, so there we go. So that's that basically. I've also, if we come across the garage here, I've also now removed the other bracket from there, the other toe brackets. We've got those removed. I've just been scratching around for things to do. Actually, I just want to get the engine built. We've got our plates painted here, as you can see there. There's our sump done there. There's our water pump pulley. The crank pulley is, where did I put it? The crank pulley's up there. Look, that's all done. That's all pretty and painted in satin black. It's Halford satin black. It's one of the best paints on the planet, I think, for an aerosol can. Halfords are brilliant. The starter motor was very interesting. I'll take this over to the bench. The starter was very interesting. I know this looks filthy here, but it's only paint, guys, so I'm not worried about it. I thought I'd give the starter a clean because it was quite crusty. And when I turned it up this way, a load of black, I can only describe it as like black salt, came out of it. So I've got a feeling I've already told you this, haven't I? So I can only assume it was brush material, but the brushes are really good. So I don't know, so I stripped it down, give it a good clean out. It was all bloody ganky and really filthy, and that was, my hands were absolutely minging. A load of clutch dust in there. So I've cleaned all this shaft. Remember, don't go lubricating all this because you don't want it wet, because all the clutch dust will just stick to it and bung it up. Masked off the screws, sprayed the actual main casing, cleaned everything up here, cleaned up all the back and everything. So it's all good to go. That's what the cadmium plating looks like. On here it's not too bad. I didn't paint that silver because I didn't. And we've got that one there. I mean, that's going to go again. It's absolutely fine. So so there we are. Very simple to take apart. You pull that split pin out, and that allows the pivot pin to come out for the solenoid, and then you undo these two nuts on here, undo these 3 bolts here, and the whole lot just slides out, and then this back plate comes off. The plate in there with the stator with the brushes in, there's 4 brushes, that just slides off the armature. Job done. It's absolutely wonderful. The arm that works between the solenoid and the starter stays on the solenoid, and it stays on the armature as well. So you take this off, that comes off separate, that comes off separate, that comes off separate, that comes off separate, and you leave the armature and the arm together. So there we are. I looked in the manual for torques and stuff, and there's nothing in there. And the Haynes manual actually states that these starter motors are so good, you're unlikely to have to rebuild one. Well, that's very, very helpful. Thank you for that. It's very strange, that manual. So anyway, there we go. Right, I'm going to call that a day. There's those brackets, there's that other towing bracket. You can see with this one I had to do a bit of grinding on it. The spot welds on this car are a nightmare. Like modern cars, the spot welds are all like dead easy and simple to find, and they're all very precise because they're done by robots. These are obviously all done by hand, and I mean this one here, I don't know how they managed it, but this one here, you can see where the spot weld was, okay, but it was actually welded all the way out to the corner. Just there's the opposite side. It was welded all the way out to that corner, so I had to grind it away. And you can see this one here is right on the edge of the flange of the hole that's in there, and it actually squashed the flange flat. So there we go. There's a bracket to begin with the Abarth. There's a bracket that has to be welded on where they were fitted. So there we go. So right, that's that. So I won't be doing the carburetor on video because it's lots and lots of concentrating and remembering where things go and everything, and taking photos. And to be honest, making videos of all this rebuilding stuff is a bit of a pain. Because having the camera, it's easy when you're modelling on a bench with a camera just looking down and you're working here like that, that's absolutely fine. But when you're sort of trying to film stuff, and it's very awkward. Anyway, I will see you all soon. Hopefully this video will go out for you today, and then we'll when the new seal comes, we'll carry on with the engine build. But until then, I won't put anything else out, I don't think. All right, I'll see you soon. Thank you for watching. Bye.